An area of Counter-Strike which is often overlooked in terms of importance and significance on a tournament is actually the format of the tournament. Yes, it's all well and good what games happen. Like, you can set up the perfect tournament. It can have the best format, the best system. But if the games aren't good, if the teams aren't good, yes, it won't be a great tournament. But the same applies the other way around. You can have the best teams, you can have the best players, you can have awesome maps. But when the tournament isn't ideally structured, when the format has flaws to it, then you're going to see the same problems occur again and again. You're going to see these areas where it's inefficient, or you just wish that things could be slightly different because you've seen how it was in another tournament and you're left unsatisfied. And I think that's a problem that we've come to at this point in time in terms of the major tournaments in CSGO and how some of the other tournaments are structured. Because we're in a good position, we're having good tournaments, but we all can see these certain flaws and these certain areas where we wish it was better. And we're now starting to see tournaments that have used formats that are better. And so what I thought I'd do was, I'll run through the different tournament formats that we've basically seen in CS in general, but mainly in CSGO, and I'll kind of, as I outline them, I'll explain which tournaments they were and some of the pros and cons. So, the standard in CSGO history is to have a round-robin group stage of 4 teams. So, each group has 4 teams, and they play each other once. So you can have 6 games overall. And from that 4 teams, you take the top 2 placed and you put them into, because remember there's going to be 4 groups, so you can have 8 teams. They're going to go into a single elimination playoff bracket, and they'll play best of 3 in the quarterfinals, best of 3 in the semi-finals, best of 3 in the final. That's the standard. That's what back in old 1.6 we used to have for the DreamHack tournaments. That's what we had for ESWC. I think ESWC was actually the first to start the system, except they actually had two 4-team group stages where they kept putting teams through, but well, that means they actually had 8 groups below that. But whatever, the top part of the SWC structure was essentially just like this. And it's a good structure. It had some improvements on the old system of just having a massive double elim bracket with best of 1. You got to see more games once you got to the playoffs. It has some positives to it. The problems it really runs into start with the round robin aspect, which is you're going to get inevitable 3-way ties that happen in these sorts of groups. Because all you need is, well, you play 3 games each. So if 2 teams go 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, there's ties right there. if 3 teams go 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, there's ties right there. What if only 2 teams tie? What if one team goes 3-0, but the others go 2-1, 1-2, whatever? You can have 3 go 1-2. Obviously, you can get all these scenarios. It's all these permutations where you get tiebreakers, and that doesn't happen rarely. That happens in almost every single tournament that you've seen this structure in. It just does. And so what happens then? Well, now we have to break the tie. So how do we break the tie? Unfortunately, because of time constraints, organizers will nearly always plump for the option which revolves not playing more Counter-Strike. So inevitably, the ones that they tend to pick is either this. Either they go off record between the 2 teams, as in if 2 teams are tied, unfortunately this doesn't work in a three-way tiebreaker, which is how we got to the next tiebreaker. But in a 2-team tiebreaker, you just look at the 2 teams, and when they played the one time, it was best of 1, who won the game. And whoever won the game gets to go through. Now, the problem with that system is that is inherently unfair. Like, think about this. You can actually get a scenario like this, where the team that went through in first place, okay, that's fine. The team that goes through in second and third, that's who the tiebreaker's between. They're the 2 that are tied. You can have a world where the team that ends up losing the second and third tiebreaker is the one who lost, okay, between the 2 of them. And yet the team who lost between the 2 might have actually beaten the team who's going through in first place. Meanwhile, the team who won the two-person tiebreaker there might have lost to the team below. Can you see what's inherently unfair about that? I've beaten a better team with the same record overall, but because you beat me, now you get to go through over me. Yes, it's a system, it's arbitrary, we have to decide who goes through, but I don't particularly like that as a system. It has a flaw to it, as I've just kind of brought up there. You could also throw in the fact that another tiebreaker, which you then tended to move to, because you got three-person tiebreakers, and in 3-person tiebreakers, it's nearly always the case that you all beat each other. Therefore, that usually tends to take care of that. But in these scenarios where you get 3-person tiebreakers, especially, what they came to was they decided to start using round difference. And what they would do is, one thing is they would tend to make it so it was round difference only between the 3 teams that are tied, because if the 4th team was really bad and had just lost every game, and once they've lost 2 games, they already know they're out pretty much, so they just bomb the last game and don't try. They didn't want that to affect it too much, so they made it round difference between the 3 teams. The problem there is round difference is even more unfair than the one before, because in round difference, it carries certain assumptions which, to be fair, you'd need to all have played the same maps, all have started on the same side on those maps. Otherwise, you're going to get into extremely unfair situations, which are biased against certain types of teams. Think about this. Imagine your best map is Train, and you got to start CT side on your first game there, a game that you won, and you won 16-3. That's not an unrealistic Train scoreline. If you're a very good Train team, you start CT side. So you have 16-3. You have a massive round difference of 13 rounds from that one game. Now, my best map in this world is Inferno, and I get to start on terrorist side. And I have a good terrorist set. Now, here's the problem. In modern day CSGO, you're going to think, well, Inferno is really CT-sided. This is the thing. In earlier versions of CSGO, and especially in 1.6, Inferno was actually the most balanced map. It was more of the 9-6, 8-7 type map. So in that world, let's say I actually have an awesome first half, and I get 7 rounds on my T side. Now, even if I go, like, 8 rounds straight on CT side now, you can see the round difference there is obviously going to be 16-8. So I've only got a round difference of 8. And yet, compared to how the maps work and the map biases, I've had an amazing half, just like you had an amazing half on yours. But I got to start on the wrong side, and I'm on a map that's more balanced. Therefore, my round difference naturally is going to be worse. And you can't just say, oh, well, he's better because he got more rounds. Yeah, but what map and what side? These are the unfair aspects of it. And it shows this strange... It hasn't been purposely implemented, but it has a natural chauvinism within it for maps which are super CT-sided, and you get to start on the CT side. That gives you a massive advantage in a round difference system like this. Whereas if you're the teams that are really good on Dust 2 and on Inferno, in the modern day maybe Mirage, you're going to have more problems in terms of how the map's traditionally played out. So that's why all those tiebreakers I don't like. That's why in general I don't like round robin. There's also too much variance and not many chances for rematches. One of the problems with round robin also is the order you play the teams in really affects things. Like, for example, if I have to play the best team in my first game, my very first game in the whole tournament, maybe I just get stomped, I haven't even warmed up, had nothing going on at that point in time. If you get to play the best team, we're in the same group. At the end, maybe they're totally warmed up, maybe you're totally warmed up, maybe you have a much better performance against them, you know how many rounds you need, you know how you need to play. Likewise, if I play the worst team first of all, maybe I ultra stomp them. No, maybe I just beat them, because it's their first game, they're still trying super hard. But once they know it's pretty much certain they're out of the tournament now, they don't give a fuck, but they have to play one more game. They might not even try in the last game, and they might just give you a free win and give you 3 rounds in the round difference and all that sort of thing. There's all sorts of problems there. Whereas the good thing about GSL system, where you're just playing in this little bracket, is in theory, when you play the teams doesn't matter. That's how you do in the actual bracket overall. So going from the standard there, we'll move down to what we had for the majors. This has been the major format, which is best of 1 GSL style group. Now, when we say GSL, for anyone who's not familiar, this term, also sometimes called the Lurpus system, comes from where years ago I told Lurpus about this system they used in Korean StarCraft, which is now famously used in the GSL, where it's basically, instead of a round robin group, it's just a little 4-team double elimination bracket with best of 1. And the idea is, since you're just trying to get 2 teams out, there's no grand final. The person who wins the winners bracket final, because there's going to be 4 matches. So these 2 matches play out, and then those 2 go to a winners bracket. The winner of that one, who's won 2 games, is out. The loser of those initial first 2 games is going to go down and play in 1 game here. Loser of that is out because they've lost 2. So remember that. Win 2, you're through. Lose 2, you're out. That leaves 1 person left, and they're going to play the loser of that winner final. So last game to decide the second place person out is going to be that. They'll have won 2. And likewise, the other all have lost 2. So remember, all you have to remember that is win 2 and you're through, lose 2 and you're out. So until that happens, on either side, you're not through or out. Now, with this system, it actually existed before GSL, which is this big StarCraft 2 tournament in Korea. It used to be in the MSL, and it used to go way back to, I know it was at least in 2006, maybe even 2005. I think it was 2006 where they introduced it. This is a great system. What's great about this system is, first of all, it takes away a lot of the pointless problems of the round robin I described before. Like, it's impossible to have any tiebreakers for a start off. You need 1 less match, because whereas you play 6 matches in the round robin of 4 teams, you only play 5 in this, because we don't play a grand final. So 1 less game for organisers, that's great for them. There's no ties, there's no possibility for ties, therefore you don't need any tiebreakers, so we don't have any of the problems that you run into with all those tiebreakers. You can have rematches, because a team could beat you in the upper bracket part, but then drop down for that third final game, and you might play them there and beat them and go through. There's all sorts of interesting scenarios can happen. Now the problem is, in this particular sense, so we have best of 1 group, GSL style groups. It goes into the top 8 teams come out, so top 2 from each group, an 8-team best-of-3 single elimination, same as the other format I talked about, and a best-of-3 final. The problem with this GSL style group is I think it's great, but a best-of-1 is too little for the GSL style in CS, as the key word, in CS. Because in CS, we've seen it can be very, very variable in terms of what map do you get for this. Even worse in the majors because it has a random map selection component to it. But what map you get, you might be a very good team like Titan. Well, not very good, but a good team like Titan and only play 2 games and go out. Yeah, it's got its problems. So let's look at some other formats. So at Gfinity G3 back in August of 2014, they had a system where it was round robin best of 1, 6 team groups. There was 2 groups of 6 teams each. So you're going to play 5 games each, so a lot of games, best of 1. And then after that, the top 4 from each group, so 4 out of the 6 of each go through to an 8-team single elimination bracket, and then best of 3 final. Now, the tournament that was the most similar to was the old IEM World Championships in CS 1.6. Used to be similar to that, except they only took 6 teams and they did a quarterfinals. But okay, it had those big groups like that. Now, what's good about that is it takes away some of the variance and some of the problems of just the 4-team. Because the problem with the 4-team is you only play 3 best of 1s. Therefore, you lose one game here and there's a lot of tie scenarios. The round difference is more of an issue. That's less of an issue. You're playing much more games. And overall, the better teams are going to get through. That's quite sure. But still, you're going to end up with scenarios like round difference or deciding based on who played each other, as Epsilon and Nip found out at Gfinity. It's very time consuming because of the sheer number of games you're playing. You're playing a lot of games in each group there. And then you have the tiebreaker still. So there's the issue there. Another format used was the Copenhagen Games style, which was they had these 4-team round robin groups, but nobody went out of the group. The top 2 placed teams in the group went to the upper bracket. The bottom 2 placed teams went to the lower bracket, and they used best of 3 in their group, so it was even more time consuming. But the upper bracket was played best of 3, and the lower bracket was played best of 1. Now this needs this is the most time consuming tournament format you can imagine. And also, a downside of it is, yes, it gives a lot of play to teams, and group essentially just decides your seeding for the brackets. But it also just means that a lot of the tournament is actually just the bad teams playing tons of games that we don't care about. Like going to the lower bracket and playing a bunch of best of 1s against each other till they even get to the really good teams. So you have tons of games and you tend to be spending a lot of your time playing games that no one really gives a fuck about. That's the downside of that. Now, the final format I'm going to talk about is the old StarLadder system, the style that was there for the first whole bunch of them, especially all the 2013 ones, but is going to be changed for this weekend's, which is they just had an online season, and the top 4 teams qualified for the LAN finals. And then the LAN finals was just a double elim bracket, best of 3. And then the final was a best of 5, but you started with the upper bracket team having a 1-game winner's bracket advantage. Now, I love this format. It's really awesome. The problem with it is, to qualify for the teams there, because you're only going to have 4 teams at your LAN, you have to have the big online season. And so this isn't going to be used for majors. There's no way. And in fact, a lot of tournaments aren't going to do this because you're going to have 4 teams there. And it's great in terms of that. You get a lot of play between the teams. But again, this is only going to work for this type of a small event. You're never going to get that into the majors. So it's almost, I like that tournament format. I've enjoyed it. But first of all, it's not ideal to have people qualifying online. So that's an issue itself. Maybe you should have an offline component there. Anyway. But now we had this tournament at Gfinity Spring Masters 1, which I think had what is currently the best format I've ever seen in a CSGO tournament. The group stage was GSL style, but it was best of 3. So we had that awesome aspect of like it's a double elim bracket. Doesn't matter when you play someone, just matters how you do. And if you win 2, you're through. If you lose until you lose 2, you're not out. You can play someone in a rematch, like Cloud9 played Orbit in the first game. Then they played them in the final game to decide who went through. So you had a rematch scenario there. You got to see them play 2 best of 3s. Because it's best of 3, you got to see Envy play Nip, the second and third best teams in the world. So you literally, for free at this tournament, got to see the exact same matchup in the exact same format as the semi-final of IEM Katowice, as the final of MLGX Games Aspen, as the final of DreamHack Winter 2014, just as a little freebie mini-final within the tournament. What a great format. From this system, they only had 2 groups. Out of there came 4 teams, and they went to a semi-finals, which was best of 3, same as usual. Played out those. Then the final was best of 5. Now, I'm going to take that model because I think there's a lot of positives to it, and I'm going to expand it and do what was my ideal tournament format. And the idea of making it an ideal tournament format is if it was up to me, this is what the major would look like. So I'm going to take the structure of the Gfinity tournament, but I'm going to expand it because for the majors, we want 16 teams, right? So we're going to keep the same style we had for... Okay, let's have the same invitation method the majors have. I won't complain about that for now. Teams that finish top 8 get automatic seeds into the next one. Top 4, they're the top pool, all that shit. But taking all of that, because I can go into more detail on that another day, and using the offline qualifier to decide the other 8 teams, we're going to have 16 teams, just like all the other majors. And again, we're going to have 4 groups of 4, and these are going to be GSL style. But the difference is, instead of best of 1, these are going to be best of 3. From that, we're going to take the top 8 teams. The top 8 teams are going to go into a best of 3 quarterfinals. Then the winners of that are going to play in a best of 3 semi-finals. Then the final is going to be best of 5. There'll be no third place decider, no random third map selection. So let's talk about what this means. In the group stage, that means a lot more play. Like, listen, if Titan had played the exact same teams at the major, but they'd played Envy in a best of 3 and lost, and then they'd played Penta in a best of 3, and let's imagine the same thing happens. Let's say they lose. It would actually be very difficult for them to complain and be like, oh, we didn't get enough play, and it was just one map and we were out, and we picked the wrong map. You couldn't say any of that. You played 2 best of 3s. What more do you want? If you are good enough in that scenario, and you're not in some uber-stacked group like they weren't, then you should be going out in that scenario. There's nothing to complain about. That's about as much play as you need to really determine how good the teams are. So there's that for a start off. Now, going beyond that, going into the playoffs, we're going to be in a world where same format for the semi-finals and quarterfinals. Best of 3 in general is enough. Unlike other games, best of 3 is enough to determine who the better team is in CSGO. Because the key thing about CS that games like League of Legends do not have, or even games like StarCraft 2 for that matter, is in those games, the game itself is one entity. If you start out poorly in a StarCraft game and you get behind in a certain way and the enemy has certain advantages build for him and stack as the game goes on, and the disadvantages build up for you that you have to overcome, and he has to really do a lot of mistakes to fall down. In League of Legends especially, certain mistakes early on and then one key fight lost here makes it very difficult to win the game. Whereas in CS, the way the rounds restart and the money system works, you repeatedly get what are essentially resets of the entire game. Say you're beating me and I'm the better team. You win the pistol, you win the 3rd round, you win a key gun round. Even with that huge advantage, you might be up 6 or 7 rounds. If on the 8th round, I now buy full weapons, full rifles, full armor, all my flashes and nades, it's now a complete reset. If I am the better team than you, I can now just beat you on this round. And then if I beat on this round, I can also beat on the next round, can beat you on the round after that. If I'm the better team, you might go up 7-0 and I can just win 16-7 still. That's extreme, obviously, but that could happen if I am significantly better. Or if I even figure out what you're doing during a game, I can shut it down. And now, even if you got to 14 rounds and you're so close to winning, you might never win the last 2 rounds. I might just come all the way back and win. That's the good thing about CS. A game itself contains all these moments within it when it can change and adaptation can happen and you can have comebacks, etc., in a way that you can't in the same degree in those other games. Therefore, best of 3 is enough usually to decide who's the better teams, especially with a proper map selection, without random third maps. Very unlikely the better team is going to lose the best of 3, although obviously you will get extremely close ones where then there's a little bit more play there. So in general, we only need best of 3, but after watching the best of 5s that I've seen, so the Fragmite Masters final, which admittedly was one map winner bracket advantage, I can't remember for that one entirely, I think so. The Face It 2-season LAN finals was best of 5 finals. Some of the StarLadders started with 1 map advantage, and then obviously Gfinity Spring Masters final 1 was best of 5. I think best of 5 for normal quarterfinals, semifinals would be too much. It's too time consuming. You have to play too many maps. We can already kind of tell when people are winning 2-0 that they're probably the better team. But for a final, I do like it. Because first of all, it adds in a component where you're going to have to play way more maps. You're not going to get away with just having, like, yes, you can have a competitive advantage where your team are idiots and they sort of give you the better maps. And that might make you look like you're better. But in this scenario, you're only going to get to ban once and you have to pick after that. So you're going to play way more maps. So you'll have to show how varied you are as a team. And there's more opportunities for comebacks, for the better team to dominate even harder. I think as a format for finals, it's very good to determine who the best are, and a lot more chances for people to choke and make it more difficult for lesser teams to upset in a big final. I think in general it's great. Now, some of the difficulties of this selection, obviously, that reminds me, I should also mention why some of the other factors. So why no why is no third place decider? Third place decider games are just crap. First of all, they tend to take place during the final or before the final, when no one really gives a fuck because they want to watch the final. Secondly, teams don't really seem to care. Just watch the way they're played out. And in general, nobody can really get as hyped because you're already out of the tournament. You can't win anymore, so you haven't got that fire to win. The person who actually gets the most advantage in a third place decider tends to be the team where them even making the semis was amazing. The team who could have won the tournament but only fell out in the semis, they're the ones who tend to not give a fuck. So actually there's even this weird chauvinism in third place deciders if you go back through history where the lesser team tends to win more often because they still care and we're like, oh, we can still come third. The other one's like, oh, fuck, we've blown it, we didn't win the tournament, so, and they don't give a fuck. So it's not even a good game in general. So get rid of that. Definitely get rid of random third map selection. It just ruins the fucking tournament. When I was watching this Gfinity tournament, I had to keep reminding myself every time it was an awesome third map, like a map that would be cool, like 50-50 between the two teams, or even better, a map that both teams want to play. I had to keep reminding myself, oh wait, that's actually how it's supposed to be. I felt like I was one of those fucking rats that's in like a lab experiment where when it goes down the left-hand corridor, it gets electrocuted by a little like electrode sticking out the wall, and it's just like frightened to even go down there. Like once I actually saw good maps coming up, I kept thinking like, oh, that could have been cobblestone. Oh god. And then I was like, oh wait a second, actually this is the normal world of CS that I've lived in for like 10 years where you're allowed to just have some say in what the fucking third map is. Because the stupidest part about the random third map selection is that you can get into a world where of the remaining 3 maps, both teams, yeah, maybe one would prefer they play this one or this one. But first of all, sometimes there'll be an ideal world where they'd both like to play this one here, therefore they would play that. Or even worse, there's a scenario where they both definitely don't want to play this third map, this other map, which they might not even play in general, so they might not even be good on it either. And that might be the third map, one that neither team wants to play. That's a terrible scenario. What a terrible system that is. It goes without saying that choosing the third map is significantly better. So get rid of that. But not only that, Gfinity employed the map selection system that is my favourite, which is you ban first each, so ban. Now you pick each. You don't ban again, you pick each, so pick. Now you ban, and then there's the last game. The reason why that's an awesome system is because, first of all, you can use your ban to get rid of the opponent's best map, right? So in an ideal world, a lot of us are going to ban your best map, and then I'm going to pick my best map, assuming it hasn't been banned away. But if it's just ban and then ban immediately, so we get to ban 2 maps each, now we can just take away all of each other's best maps. And now we're just going to play the last 3 maps, which are just like the ones that were average on 50-50, etc. Now teams might like that, but for spectators that's terrible. The idea is, yeah, you can ban my best map, but I can at least play my second best map in a world where that's how we ban. So as a result, we're going to get to at least see them play their second best maps against each other. We're going to have a really great series. You can also obviously use the strategy where instead I just ban my weakest map away, and now I'm going to try and pick my best map, but then you might get to pick your best map as well. See, this opens up a lot more play, this system of ban, pick, ban last. Now, what are the problems in this scenario? Well, first of all, because I'm having 16 teams, these best of 3 groups are going to take a lot more time to play out. So first of all, book the venue for a longer time. Instead of 2 days, make it 3 days. Instead of 3 days, make it 4 days. We're getting to a point now for majors where these are world championships where $100,000 is on the line, and even the qualifier is worth playing because of the sticker money you can get, and even the qualifier is like a mini LAN. Therefore, why don't we have it be 4 days? Hell, make it 5 days if you want. This is a world championship now. When I think of other tournaments, the International 4 in Dota 2 lasted something like 13 days or something ridiculous. World Championship in League of Legends lasted like a month or more. Why does a major in Counter-Strike Global Offensive have to last 3 days? This is just ridiculous. Book the fucking venue. If you can't host it for more than 4 days, let someone else have the major, mate. You're not fucking qualified to hold it. Book the venue up for more days so we can have this great system that's going to make amazing matches like this. Not scenarios where we're all like, oh, what would happen if Titan had played someone else? None of that shit. Well, there won't be any of that guff. Play games at the same time because you need to get through the games, and therefore I hate fucking schedules where you have to watch a boring game anyway. So let's just only pick out on the schedule the best games on paper. The whole tournament will be stacked with awesome games. Yet the other teams who are not that great will still get to play each other. Now people can complain they won't get as much exposure and all the rest of it. Personally, I don't really care about the exposure of little crap teams that are going to come in last place. if they need exposure, listen, there's going to be other tier 2, there's going to be tier 2 lands and tier 3 lands. Go to those ones where there's less good teams, you can do better, you can get to a semi-final there, you can have a nice upset win over someone here. That's how you get your exposure. It's not the job of the World Championship to ruin the format and make it limited for the better teams to give crap teams more exposure. I'm sorry, that's not the primary quality. The primary quality of the World Championship is to show the best teams playing and show us incredible what the game is capable of doing and the best games. That's what the primary function is. A secondary might be that some team gets some exposure. Great. That's not what I'm going to focus all my attention on, limit everything else. So all in all, I think this is the best format. I think overall, when you look at each section, we're changing formats as we go through each section, specific to what is ideal for that scenario. Group stage here, then quarterfinals here, and then a final here. We're changing aspects. We've taken in all different functions from features, rather, from tournaments of the past, and we've constructed what at the moment to me seems like the best tournament format. And so I hope that we can see this in majors in the future. And I know that in Gfinity, this is going to be the system going forwards. Admittedly, in Gfinity, they only have 8 teams overall. They don't have the 16 teams. So if we want to do it to majors, we have to expand it to 16. But I think for now, this is the best format and the one that actually has the most aspects that are going to be reasonable for a major. It's not like I'm demanding people go to a StarLadder 4-team land final of best of 5s every round. This is the reasonable format. Oh, and my videos are all sponsored now by Vulcan, and they've just expanded. Previously they did Fantasy League of Legends, but now they're doing Fantasy Counter-Strike Global Offensive. So if you want to play some, you go to www.vulcan.com, vulcun.com, and sign up with the code Thorin with 3 O's, so THOOOOOOO, yeah, THOOORIN, and they will match your initial deposit using that code up to $1,000 by 100%. So you put in $1,000, you get $1,000 to play with as well. And you look at the play day, it's a fantasy scenario. You have a little salary cap. You pick out the players you want within the salary cap. Like, oh, I have this star player, but then I can only afford these ones for these other spots. And then the tournament takes place. They calculate all the points. And if you finished, whatever, third, you get that third place prize money. It's basically like a little tournament system, and you pay to enter. There's some that are free to enter as well, and there's different grades of scale that you can pay for. So if you want to play Fantasy Counter-Strike Global Offensive, they sponsor this channel, Vulcan, go there.